incredibly special guest tonight. This is a really huge one. He's a prolific actor and performer who's behind a long history of film and TV's most memorable and powerful moments that you might not even be aware of. Nearly 200 projects under this guy's belt, an adventure of the very best in cinema. He's traumatized us all. If you go back to the original It miniseries, he was part of that with Tim Curry and everybody. Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, the X-Men films, Watchmen, Cabin in the Woods. He served as a stunt coordinator for the 16-time Emmy-winning TV show X-Files, if anyone's heard of that. Joel Silver and Robert Zemeckis' 13 Ghosts, and alongside director Chris Nolan. So he's done it all with the biggest in Hollywood. As an actor, he shows up in everything from the Oscar-winning Legends of the Fall to Ace Ventura, Supernatural, Wrong Turn 2, Joyride 3, and dozens more. After crafting thrilling action scenes for Friday the 13th Part 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, even getting behind the mask himself for a few scenes, making him the only other person in the history of the Friday the 13th movies to ever play Jason more than one time. An honor that he got when he received the role of Jason Voorhees in Freddy vs. Jason. So it is my esteemed honor to welcome Ken Kirzinger to the stage.
New Pasadena.
Thank you, my man, so much for joining us. This is awesome. I just found out that while looking into your past history, I found out that you were born in Saskatchewan, which is where I'm from, randomly enough.
That is so weird,
right?
Because not a lot of people come from Saskatchewan.
Exactly, or even can pronounce it or know where the hell it is. So that's really cool. So I guess just starting off, growing up in your formative years, what was your relationship like to the horror genre? What were the first horror movie you saw, maybe, and how did it make you feel?
I was one of those kids who snuck out of bed late at night for a thriller, chiller theater at 11 o'clock at night and turned the TV on. Of course, we didn't have headsets, so I'd have to keep the volume really low and sit about 6 inches from the screen so my parents wouldn't wake up and find out that I was out of bed. But yeah, I watched all the old horror movies growing up. I think The Fly was one that really scared me most, or sticks out in my memory. And then, you know, I just, as time went on, I got into horror, working in horror films and stuff like that, mostly because of my size, because I was always in costume of some kind. You know, I played a werewolf, I played a Sasquatch, I've been robots, I've been zombies, so that helped. I always say it's a gift and it's a curse to be this tall. You bang your head a lot, but it gets you work.
What was the first time you experienced a Friday the 13th movie?
Well, I think I was like everybody else. I mean, as they came out, because I'm of that age group, you know, I would watch them as they came out. And I was a fan of the Friday the 13th franchise growing up. And like I said, I loved horror. I kind of switched a little bit as I got older, you know, later on in years and stuff, into sci-fi and stuff. But I mean, horror's got such an awesome history, and you know, it's such a great genre of movie, and you can see the popularity of it.
Oh yeah, it's incredible. How about Nightmare on Elm Street? When was the first time you saw an Elm Street? Well, which one was it that you saw? Did you see the first one?
I watched Nightmare on Elm Street. I think I saw it in the theater. And I ended up, actually, the fellow that did the special effects for Nightmare on Elm Street did the special effects for Jason Takes Manhattan. So I got to work with him on that, and that was a great experience. He had accomplished so much. He got so much notoriety early in his career because of Elm Street.
Sure. Yeah, it broke so much ground. What about getting into showbiz yourself and your path towards becoming a stuntman?
So, when I was really young, probably about 11 or 12 years old, I read an article about a very famous stuntman called Hal Needham. And I think I decided right then and there that that's what I wanted to do. I think my mother wanted to slap me. But it was always in the back of my head. And when I was in university, I was playing college football, and I wrecked my knee playing football. And so I decided, all right, I'm going to look into becoming a stuntman. And I came down to Los Angeles, and my sister was living in Los Angeles at the time. And her next door neighbor was the property master on the old Fall Guy TV series.
Cool.
So I ended up getting to meet him, and he gave me the phone number of a stunt guy that worked on the series, and he in turn gave me the phone number of a guy in Vancouver. And so when I got back to Vancouver, I made the phone call and had a couple meetings with some of the local guys. And I think it was about less than a month later, I was working on my first movie, Superman 3, in Calgary, Alberta.
That is a trip. What was the first stunt that you remember performing professionally?
Well, so it was on Superman 3, and there's a big refinery disaster in Superman 3, and so they blew out a corner of the building, and I was one of the firemen who were nearby that got blown over. So that was my actual first stunt on film. I was wondering if I was really going to get blown up.
Sure, yeah.
I mean, back then they were burning car tires to put up the ambient smoke, and if you know how bad that is for you.
Yeah, exactly, right?
Yeah, it's surprising they got away with it. But
did you find that you ended up leaning towards a certain specialized version of some stunts? Were you a car chase guy? Were you a fire guy? Were you what?
When I started out, you wanted to be able to do something of everything.
Sure.
So I learned, I was quite well known for cars and fights. And again, because of my size, I got cast as bad guys, the thug, henchman number 1, thug number 2, that kind of stuff. But I did everything. So I did high falls, fights, fires, car stunts, and I learned, from other stuntmen and budget rent-a-car.
What was the closest call you've had?
It wasn't budget.
Yeah, right. Closest call as a stuntman.
The closest call as a stuntman, it's everybody. Similar question is, what's the most dangerous stunt you've done? And the most dangerous stunt you can do is the one that goes wrong, because nobody's supposed to get hurt doing stunt work, but when things go wrong, they can go really wrong. I was doing a car chase on the side of a mountain in an open Jeep, and it had a roll bar, but it didn't come up past the top of my head, and a lap belt. And we were doing a sequence where I was supposed to bump this guy off the side of the road, and he was supposed to slide this way, and I was supposed to drive by him, and instead of going this way, he turned into me, and my Jeep hit the front of his car, flipped upside down, landed on the roll bar, and then went back on the wheels and went off the side of the mountain, partway down the side of the mountain, and then it stopped itself because I was kind of knocked senseless, and it idled itself back up onto the road. And everybody on the crew thought I had torn the top of my head off because I was wearing a wig and it had peeled it back. And it was flapping up like this. And I remember hearing women scream and people running towards me, and this Jeep's leaking gas all over the place. And I'm sitting there just trying to take it all in. My elbow really hurts. So I move real slow. I go to break my neck. What have I done to myself, kind of thing. And luckily I fractured my elbow, because when the Jeep flipped, I threw my arms up over my head to save my head, and actually hit so hard I bent the driver's seat back and the windshield down, and tore the face off the watch I was wearing on the pavement, and the leather jacket.
That would have been my last day as a stuntman. That's it.
You know what? I came back the next day, and we finished the car chase.
You're a tough MFer, dude. All right, well, we'll talk about your foray into the Friday the 13th world, right? That happened with Jason Takes Manhattan. So talk about just getting into that.
Yeah, so I remember I got the call, and the first call I got was from Randy Shovelday, who was the production manager, and he said, "Hey, Ken, do you want to play Jason and be the stunt coordinator on Jason Takes Manhattan?" And I didn't get a chance to get back to him right away. He got back to me, and he goes, "We made a deal with the guy that played Jason before, and he's going to play Jason in this one, so we just want you to be the stunt coordinator on it." I said, "All right." So I went in, and knowing I'd end up doubling the guy, so I was the stunt coordinator on the show.
Yeah.
So it wasn't a bad deal, and I put myself in for a day as the fry cook. I don't know if you guys know that or not, but the fry cook who Jason throws over the counter and into the mirror and dies. I think Kane and I are the only two guys that have played Jason and been killed by Jason.
Right, exactly. Kill each other. What did you notice about? I mean, I guess it applies to both that and Freddy versus Jason. as far as like the DNA or the spirit of a Jason movie that hits a little different from other projects that you've worked on, maybe there's a shared aesthetic or tone that is unique to the franchise.
I think if that would be anything, it would be just the fan support. It is such a big deal. You know, Jason is a worldwide character, and
Part of pop culture, right?
Exactly. So anytime you have that going for you, I mean, it's like Alien, Predator. You know, you can build a movie around that character because they're so popular. People want to see him again and again and again and again. And so that to me is the big difference. Just is you guys, is the fan support that we get from you.
Oh yeah. So we get into this mashup of Freddy versus Jason that people have been talking about and wanting this forever. It goes back to like the 1940s, even when monster mashup movies were done, and you know, who would beat who, Dracula or Frankenstein, that kind of thing. And people, of course, would do this with the biggest monsters in modern history, Freddy and Jason. You can't get much bigger than that. So when they started down this process, it was 16 different writers, $6 million spent on script after script after script. Rumors that over 40 directors, apparently Guillermo del Toro was considered at one point, Peter Jackson, Rob Bottin, special effects guy from The Thing and all those great movies, was going to be something he directed at one point. And it ended up being finally made with this script that Mark Swift and Damien Shannon came up with. What do you think? Well, first of all, I want you to, I'm sure you've heard some of the wild concepts that came before Freddy vs. Jason. What are some of the ones that you recall or that you've learned about just doing the convention circuit even that happened?
I actually haven't heard of too many of the other versions. I know there were like 10 other scripts.
Yeah.
But the other versions, you guys would probably know more than I do. Yeah, I think what happened with when they try that hard, I mean, they looked. I mean, having Ronnie Yu, a Hong Kong director, take on an iconic character like Freddy, or iconic characters like Freddy and Jason. I mean, I think if you said to you guys, oh, we're going to hire a Hong Kong director to come do Freddy versus Jason, you're going to go, what? But that added so much flavor to Freddy versus Jason in very subtle ways. So they just kept going and going and going until they thought they had it right. And one of the Jeff Katz was one of the producers on it, one of the people that really pushed to get Freddy vs. Jason made. And I think that he had a really big influence on it because he was a big fan. I remember when I met him after I'd been cast and stuff, he was so excited, just like a little kid. And he was so excited for the project because he knew how big it was for the fans to have this crossover. And the first time I ever saw the movie was in Austin, Texas, outside in an outdoor field with a giant screen with 2,000 fans there.
Oh, wow.
And it was the first time I'd ever seen the movie. And Robert and I go there, we had some great barbecue. Gets dark, we watch the movie, and the fans are going crazy. I mean, we got the Jason fans are throwing their gloves up in the air, and the Jason fans are throwing their masks up in the air. And Robert and I are just looking at each other going, this is fantastic. I mean, we just couldn't have hoped, for a better turnout of the movie and stuff. So, and it doesn't seem to have disappointed a lot of the fans. Everybody's always going to have little things that they don't like, but in general, people seem to like the movie. And the fact that you guys are all coming out and listening to me 20 years later, I just makes me appreciate it all the more, and I thank you for it.
I was noting backstage that literally the day after that happened, they flew to LA, and there was a talk show on K-Rock, a radio station that I work at, and my wife and co-host Lauren worked at when I first met her, and it was called Loveline with Dr. Drew and Adam Carolla. And who shows up that next day after the premiere but Ken and Robert to give sex advice to callers. Freddy and Jason giving sex advice. It's online, you can hear the whole thing. But the funny thing is, my wife is terrified of Freddy Krueger. She's been traumatized since she was a little girl with Freddy. She didn't want to go in because Freddy was there, Robert Englund was there. And Dr. Drew was like, no, this is how you're gonna get over your trauma. You go and talk to him, he's just a normal guy.
And Robert will behave.
right? So Dr. Drew told Robert this while my wife was getting coffee for him. And she comes back with the coffee, and he's got the glove on. And he swipes her back and he goes, "Thanks for the coffee, you bitch." And that was it, man. She is done.
I think Robert he threw the Freddy laugh in there too.
Oh, hell yeah.
And she ran out of the room, and I was telling him, he told me this story, and I go, "I remember that." He goes, "I've told people that story over and over again," because Robert was just playing with her. He just loved it.
I want to get into the casting first, but just while we're on this note, what were some of the other bizarre things that you got a chance, or very cool things you got a chance to do while promoting this movie?
You know what? I think the greatest time I had was right after the movie came out. Robert and I went to Europe to promote it with his wife Nancy, and we got to travel to Paris and Amsterdam and England and Sweden, and it was just this amazing journey. And Robert and Nancy just took me under their wings, and Robert's been everywhere. Everybody knows him. He can't go to a restaurant or a hotel where people don't recognize him. So anytime we went out for dinner, we got the best seats in the restaurant and all this attention. And I think the most fun we had though was when we ended up in Amsterdam. And Robert, he goes, I'm going to take you to the hotel I always stay at. It's the Pulitzer in Amsterdam. So he takes me to this beautiful hotel, and we have a great time there. We go out for the evening, and we may or may not have wandered into a coffee shop in Amsterdam.
Sure.
And of course, everybody recognizes Robert, and it was just one of those magical nights where we had such a good time. It was just the high point, I think, of that whole experience. And I got a glimmer into Robert's life and his globe-trotting ways and stuff. Like I said, there isn't a good restaurant or a good hotel he doesn't know. But it was just kind of surreal, the whole thing for me, because my background in stunt work was, you didn't tell people you did stunts for them back in those days. If you got hurt, you kind of went out behind the trailer and collapsed, So to get all this recognition was just bizarre to me, but I had Robert and Nancy to walk me all through it and stuff, so it was a great experience.
So we'll go back to the beginning of how this journey began for you in getting cast in Freddy vs. Jason.
So I went in for the stunt coordinating job, and I'm sitting with the line producer, and he knows that I worked on number 8, but he's not really listening to what I'm saying, and he's kind of looking at me going, and finally he just says, he goes, "Would you be interested in auditioning for Jason?" And I said, "Well, what about Kane?" And he goes, "Well, we've decided we're going to go a different way. We've been looking at all kinds of people. They're really worried about movement." And I heard I think he told me that they were auditioning ballet people.
Interesting.
And all kinds of people. They auditioned a lot of people. And so I said, "Sure, I'll audition for it." And the audition was, they read the opening scene where the girl is swimming in the lake, and they did a close-up of my eyes in this really cheap mask. And then they had me walk around the room. And that was it. They showed that to Ronnie Yu, and I had the job.
Wow. And what some people don't know is that Kane actually does make a cameo in Freddy vs. Jason.
Yeah, I did. I heard that in a clip from one of the other movies, I think.
That's right. It was in the mental hospital. Some very sharp-eyed fans opening weekend noticed that Texas Chainsaw Massacre Part 3, Leatherface, shows up on a TV screen. And in that particular scene, Kane was the stunt coordinator of Texas Chainsaw 3. And in that scene that they show, he was the stunt double for Leatherface in that exact scene. So technically, Kane was in Freddy vs. Jason after all, which is just wild.
It's a small industry.
So what were the first steps of progress as far as building the character that Ronnie Yu, the vision of Jason that Ronnie Yu wanted to build? How much attention was spent on movement and performance?
For Ronnie, the movement was really, the big thing about the movement is he wanted Jason to move so slow until he did something, because he wanted to accentuate the violence of the movement. And that was really, really hard to move slowly. And he would call me out for it. You're too fast, too fast. But when we talked about the character and stuff, I said, do you want to recreate any of the other movements from any of the other Jasons? And said, no. He had his own mind and his own vision, and Jason is this sort of slow walking, slow moving thing that all of a sudden will take your head off.
Yeah.
And so we worked on that a little bit, and then shot some video for him, and he seemed happy with it. And I remember the first night I worked was the walk down Elm Street, and they were shooting me from behind the shadow on the road and stuff, and they're like, okay, you got the speed right now, just don't sway when you walk. And I said, how do you not sway when you walk? Put me on wheels or something like that. When I have to transfer weight from one leg to another, it's going to sway. So that's how particular they were about it, especially at the beginning.
Very interesting. How about you, like the acting part of Jason? Underneath that mask, what are you thinking? Are you putting yourself in the emotional place of Jason Voorhees and thinking, I have to kill to avenge my mom's death and my own? Is that going through your head?
You can't fake it. You can't just put on the costume and the mask and stand there. It's so subtle body language, and because Jason doesn't say anything, everything he communicates is through body language. If I'm angry and I'm going to come at somebody, my body posture is going to be forward. If I'm held back, my body posture is going to be back. When we did the scene where Jason has to shake and be scared, you got to sell all that with your body, and your shoulders come up a bit, and you have to shake harder to sell it for the camera, and so it's all part of it. I've had experience because I've had to double actors and simulate their movements and things like that. So developing a body posture and movements for Jason was something that we did early on, in the movements to get that. But you can't fake it. It'd be late at night and I'd be in the lake or something like that, and you're tired, and people can see it. They see it if you're not playing the character, even with all that on. Even if the only thing they could see of me was my eye, one eye, because the other eye was prosthetic that was glued to the mask, so I could only see out one eye. But even with all that on, you have to be in character.
Talk about meeting Robert for the very first time.
The first time I met Robert was in the makeup trailer. So I walk into the trailer, and he's in the middle of getting all his 4 hours of makeup on. And I introduced myself and said, hi, Robert, I'm Ken. I'm going to be playing Jason. He goes, I'll be seeing you now for the rest of my life. I go, why is that? And he goes, conventions, I'll tell you all about it.
That's a great first meeting. So playing opposite, obviously Freddy Krueger, the character, has so much swagger. There's so much thought and choreography that goes into the way he moves, and the way he will click a claw on the side of a rail or grab a part of the boiler room as one finger at a time, and he's got this attitude in the way he moves that just makes everybody scared to death of him and also fall in love with him at the same time. You playing Jason in those scenes with Robert, and he's doing these things, and right in front of you in those scenes, does that ever inspire you in any way? Are you ever doing things opposite of what he's doing that you never really thought that you might do, just because you're feeding off of his energy in those scenes?
It always helps when the other person is in character,
sure,
and giving you that to play off of. And I think Robert will tell you this, but he sort of got a lot of his body movement from Fosse, the dance choreographer. He's a famous New York dance choreographer. And Robert kind of stole a little from him, and that's why he looks so elegant in some of those movements and stuff.
Right.
But that's all, Freddy, and I can feed off that as Jason, because I'm not Jason isn't a dancer. He's a meat chopper. And so I can use that to play off of Robert. And Robert can use what I do to work off me. So it definitely helps. Yeah.
Right. It's the irresistible force versus the immovable object is what that is. Yeah. What was your creative relationship like with Robert in the production process? Do you table read a movie like Freddy versus Jason? Do you talk about conversations going into a scene, like revealing what the dynamics will be? Do you work on that at all in the pre-production process?
So in I didn't even meet Robert in pre-production.
Wow.
Like I said, the first time I met him was
Right where you're about to do a
on
set.
Like
Yeah.
the first night we both worked together on set. So I think that Robert has his character down pat. I mean, he's Jason isn't going to change him too much, kind of thing. We just worked off each other in the moment.
Wow. So he never said, like, this is what I'm going to do for this scene, and it'd be really cool if you did this.
Yeah, no, and you know what? It worked out better if we didn't. I mean, unless there was a safety issue involved.
Yeah.
But otherwise, it worked better not to do that because you get more honest reactions. So we would go into these situations with and Robert would do this more than I would, but he'd play with the scene more and in his movements and where he went in the room and stuff. But yeah, no, that was it.
I think we're going to go to a clip. I believe there's some clips queued up, and I think we're going to go to an example of that dynamic right now in Freddy's boiler room, possibly. Take us back to that day, man. Take us back to that day.
Well, I mean, it's all that. I mean, that was the sort of a prelim to the battle at the lake.
Yes.
But I mean, what fun! Come on. Some of the special effects when you see them in real life don't come off like they do on the screen and stuff. But I mean, I'm in Freddy's boiler room and we're playing, so it was just a fantastic, surreal experience, to be involved with that. And Robert, when he's in character on set, he's just so, because he'd be sitting beside you and then just walk in front of camera and become Freddy. So that's fun to watch. That switch had flipped. I'm sorry that he's not here tonight. I know that you guys must be really, really disappointed, and I know that we all hope he gets well soon. And Robert is the type of guy, he must have been really sick not to be here, because that guy will stay until Monday signing for people and really goes the extra yard for stuff. So I know that he must really not be feeling well to have missed not seeing you all tonight.
That's right.
That's right. You'll see him in the next one.
So that scene is a good example. It shows the dream logic that is part of the Freddy's world, right? And you got to experience kind of what that was like. Was there anything about the secret sauce behind creating those great moments in the Freddy films that you got to experience and that surprised you just in the way of in filmmaking, really?
I think one of the things was all like Ronnie Yu was big on blood.
Sure.
As you can see with all the blood shooting out of his arm. And in the final battle, we had all these tubes running up through us, and the guys on Hudson sprayers just pumping away and more blood, I want to see more blood. But I mean, the special effects have gotten even so much better since this. Like I say, it'll be a shame if they don't do another Freddy versus Jason at some point.
You gotta do it. You gotta be Jason, man. You gotta do it. So in this movie, Freddy and Jason sport different looks really than they have in any of the other films. Was any of that explained to you, like why your mask looked like the way it did, or any of that going in?
No. There was no explanation as to the costume because, as you can tell, Jason is dressed differently in this movie than any other, and that's all Ronnie Yu.
Yeah.
And from what I understand, Ronnie Yu had seen a Chinese comic book of Jason, and in that comic book, Jason looked more like the Jason in Freddy vs. Jason.
Interesting.
And that's where the visualization, I think, is what I understand. That's where it came from. So Jason's taller and the costume is different.
Yeah.
It was never really explained in the movie, and the mask doesn't have the mark in it. From
battle
previous
scars along the way.
Yeah. So they just sort of started with the base character and built from there. I think.
Yeah. Oh, I think the mask that ends up that you're wearing with the Freddy claw marks across it is just amazing.
Yeah, that is the classic Freddy versus Jason mask.
Yeah.
The claw marks in it.
Oh, it's beautiful. Yeah. What about the process of just becoming Jason and getting into that costume? You said there was prosthetics involved. What was that process like for you? How long did it take?
For me, I mean, the Jason costume was actually relatively easy compared to a lot of the costumes I've had to wear, because the head pulled on like a diver's balaclava, and they just had to do some makeup around any pieces of my skin that you could see through the mask or through the gloves. So I, put my clothes on, I put the balaclava on, I put the mask on, and I was pretty much ready to go in like 15 minutes. Funny story. We were shooting out at Bunsen Lake, which was Crystal Lake, and do you know Bryan Singer, the director? Quite a big name director. He was directing a big action feature in Vancouver at the time, and I'm sitting in my trailer out of the costume, waiting, because I had a scene later on, and I get a message on the radio saying, "Bryan Singer's here, and he says he wants to say hi." And I just worked on his movie doing some stunt work, and I thought, this guy doesn't know who I am. I was doing some ND stunts on his movie. But he was a big fan of Jason. And so he had brought his buddies out to Bunsen Lake, which is about, an hour's drive outside Vancouver, and in the middle of the night. And I come out of my trailer, and I didn't have the costume on, and I walk up to these guys, and I go, "Hey, Brian, how you doing?" He goes, "Oh, okay. Hey, Ken, I go, "You want to see the costume, don't you?" "Could you think maybe we could see it?" I go, "All right, you guys wait here, and I'll go throw the costume on." We're so disappointed. So I go back to the trailer, and I throw the costume on, and then I snuck out of the trailer, and I went around through the woods, and came up behind them.
Oh, good.
They're all looking off at the trailer and stuff, and the next thing you know, he turns around, and I'm just standing there in character, looking at him, and I got the machete and everything, and he goes, "Oh my God, oh my God, oh my God." He's just like a little kid, and his buddies get all excited. I just stayed in character, and they just stood there walking around me like I was a mannequin. And they go, "Oh, let me see the machete," and then, "Oh, can I put the mask on?" And, all right, so, but that was pretty big to have such a big director come all the way out.
Oh, that is cool. Did Jason have a playlist? Did you listen to any music to get you pumped up as Jason? You always hear about actors doing that.
I don't know if Jason has a playlist, but I think there's a couple of songs out there with
Oh, yeah. They play that in the makeup room, right? So a mask of yours from Freddy vs. Jason sold at an auction last year that I was watching for $100,000. And one of your screen match costumes and the undersuit, $30,000. And at the end of the month, one of your machetes is going up for auction, and it's interesting because it's a different scale apparently. I don't know, I guess there's a scene even to make you look even bigger. They scaled the machete down a little bit.
To my knowledge, I mean, of the machetes that I used, they were all the same size.
Okay.
They were made from various things, but I'm not sure what the smaller.
Could have been one of the stunt doubles or something, I don't know. But that said, have you kept anything yourself? Or did you get to take a mask home or anything?
I have. I have a mask that was made by the fellow who made all the masks for the movie has since passed away. But at the end of the movie, or during the movie, I said, "Can I have one? I want one of the masks."
Yeah, hell yeah.
And then he found out what the masks, how valuable they are, and he said, "I can't give you one of the masks."
Oh.
But he made me one. So he made me with the claw mark and the
that's
blood
cool.
and everything, and it looks just like the one in the movie. And like I say, since he's passed away, and they just had a big auction for all the stuff that he had in his shop just a few months ago or whatever. But the props guy on the show and I had worked together quite a few times, and I don't think I'm getting him in trouble by telling him this, but he gave me one of the rubber stunt machetes. So I have a screen-used rubber stunt machete for
that's
the movie,
sweet.
which I cherish, and I've heard that it's worth quite a bit now.
Yeah. I guess that was probably the great Bill Terzakis who worked on that
Yes.
film.
Yeah,
passed
Bill
away.
Terzakis.
That's right. All right, well, what would a movie about the world's two biggest slashers be without the kills? So we're gonna roll a clip featuring a montage of the best kills from Freddy vs. Jason right now. First kill is my favorite when you fold up Trey in that bed. They made that into part of the Universal Horror Nights maze, actually, with that scene in it. It was so cool, man.
I love that kill. That's my favorite kill, because everybody expects to get, that he's going to get stabbed with the machete or something like. But the folding of the bed was just great to draw.
And you've kicked that guy's ass on screen before, right? In Joyride 3, right? With Jesse Hutch.
Yes. Yeah, it was. Well, actually, I think Joyride 3 was after that.
Okay.
After it? Yeah, I think it was after it. But I'm blanking on his name right now. I'm sorry, but I got him
Jesse
too.
Hutch. Yeah. That's amazing, man. What would be the most complicated setup kill from Freddy vs. Jason for you?
Probably the one where we cut the kid in half in the hallway, because that was a mix of live action and a dummy that had to be set up, because when I cut that dummy in half, it was basically held together with toothpicks so that they knew that the blade would go through it. So, and I didn't want to ruin that by not going hard enough or going too soft with the cut of the machete and stuff like that. But because that was a big setup. So that would have been the most technical.
Yeah. Oh, it's interesting. You always wonder how they pulled it. Like even the bed scene. Like is there a real actor who's incorporated into that? Or is that a whole prosthetic body of the kid?
Prosthetic lower body. I think.
Okay.
And then
Cool.
the real actor upper body.
Yeah. Oh,
Yeah.
that's so cool. Was there a kill that was filmed that was on the script that didn't make it into the film?
No, I think all the kills we did, all made it in. I always wondered why, when I cut the guy in half in the hallway, and then I smack Kelly Rowland with my machete, and she goes flying into a tree. Why didn't Kelly Rowland get cut in half? Somebody tell me.
What was your favorite scene with Robert?
I guess it was probably the fight scene at the end, because it was the climax of the whole movie. Robert was really into it. I mean, we were in a burning building, and then Robert was cool, calm, collected, just great to work with in that sequence. And we had to do so much work together. That was the most work we did together in the movie, right? Because there's the pinball sequence in Freddy's World and stuff.
Yeah.
Where Jason gets his ass kicked, but maybe the reason I like the big battle at the end is because I got to do some ass kicking.
All right, want to see my favorite scene? We're gonna roll it right now. Couple questions about that scene for you. First of all, what were the mechanics of the gag of impaling Freddy with his own glove arm?
So when you see the claw come out of his chest, that's a visual effect.
Okay.
And then they, put a prosthetic in after the fact. But for the claw bursting out his chest, that was a visual effect. It's a good blend. But, I mean, how clever is that to think of? Killing Freddy, stabbing Freddy in the heart with his own claw. That is great.
And then you took a header into the water, and that's it. Were you still underwater during that, or when they cut away, are you?
No, but they had cut away from me by then. But the hard part of that sequence, because there's a shot where Jason sinks into the water, and we shot that not at the lake, but in a water tank, in the city and stuff. And to make the water safe, they got to chlorinate the shit out of it, and it's got lots of debris floating around, dust and all that kind of stuff from the set and from other various things. That Ronnie wanted to see me sink into the abyss and try and keep my eyes open as I sang.
Oh my God.
And after the first take, my eyes were just like burning. And so that was probably one of the hardest things I had to do, was try and keep my eyes open while the chlorine is bleaching them out.
Yeah, no kidding. And we see this wonderful cast, Monica Keena right there, Jason Ritter, Catherine Isabel, Kelly Rowland, all these amazing people. What was the kind of the general vibe on set when you guys weren't filming and all these young stars who were hanging out with you guys?
The kids, I call them kids, they're all young adults and everything, but they bring a lot of energy to the set. I mean, I even remember on number 8, Jason Takes Manhattan, we had all the kids on the ship, and the energy is the same. They're excited to be there. They know that this is a couple of big actors have made it out of the franchise and stuff, so it's not beyond being discovered being in one of these movies. And so they take it seriously, and they work hard, but they have fun too. And that brings a great energy to it.
There's so much tremendous stunt work in this film. It got nominated for 2 stunt awards as well. How involved did you get in the stunt work on this film?
When I met with the producer, they told me I had the part, and I said, I want to do the fire gag in the cornfield. And the only stunt I wanted to do in the movie was the fire gag in the cornfield. And he goes, Ken, we're hiring you as an actor. We're going to have a stunt double for you. We're going to have a second unit. And we're probably going to end up shooting that fire gag on second unit. So I don't think I can give that to you. I knew that would get nominated for a World Stuntman's Award, and I was so disappointed. And a good friend of mine, Glenn Ennis, ended up doing it, and did get nominated for a World Stunt Award, and he lost out to Last Samurai. He got ripped off because in Last Samurai there's a big sequence where all these guys are they're rolling these big balls of fire, and there's a big fire, but that was all computer generated fire for the most part. They put a little bit of fire on the stunt guys, but it wasn't full burns. I think there was 8 or 10 full burns involved in that sequence in the cornfield, and because of all the fire retardant and fire gel and stuff like that, Glenn couldn't really see where he was going. He had an earbud in, and it would be on the radio saying, "Okay, come forward, come forward, come forward."
And meanwhile, he's just up in smoke.
He's on fire, and so I was disappointed I didn't get to do that one. But the last night of filming, they were, last night of filming, they got a little insert unit here and a stunt unit here, and they came to me and they said, "You know what, Ken?" They go, "We got the scene where the hand comes out of the ground, I think it was, and Glenn's in the right wardrobe for that. And then we got the scene where Jason goes flying out the back of the van when the van's flipping. Would you do that?" So I said, "Yeah, okay." I guess I'm expendable now. It's the last night of filming. So I did the ratchet out of the back of the van.
Would you tend to go and show up when they were doing some of the other stunts when you had a stunt double, just to see what the process was like?
The hard part about that is because most of the stunts are on second unit, and we're on main unit, so I can't be in two places at once, which is the whole reason I wasn't doing any of the other stunts that they did on second unit. But I was happy that when it came down to the fight scene at the end and stuff like that, I got to do all the fighting.
Yeah.
And, so yeah, I mean, it was hard for a veteran old stuntman to step down to the younger guy and let him do that stuff. But it was what it was. I think it turned out well.
Yeah, for sure. What about the fight scenes in general? How long did it take to film the whole sequence? It's a pretty long fight sequence.
I think it was 5-6 nights at Bunsen Lake for the final sequence.
Yeah.
And that was, very involved. Lots of stuff flying around. The compressed air canisters flying through the air. I got hit by one, but luckily they're made of foam, so it didn't hurt too much. But it was about 5 or 6 nights, I think, if I remember correctly, to get all that.
And how does it work with because you get hacked with all over the place, and Robert's getting hacked too. Blood's flying out of you guys. Are you guys loaded? Is your costumes loaded with blood squibs, or how does that work? Is that After Effects, VFX?
Well, if not blood squibs, but we have blood hoses.
Oh, okay.
And the hoses have holes cut in them, and
so there's someone on the other end of that.
Yeah, like I said, like a Hudson sprayer. It's you might use it in your garden to spray weeds or something like that. But they pump that up and it goes into a hose, and the hose runs through the costume. And like I said, Ronnie could not get enough blood, so you're coated in this. It's syrup with red food coloring in it.
Okay.
Basically, corn syrup with red food dye, and it dyes your skin. And so at the end of the night, you're completely red. And the only way to get it off is with shaving cream.
Really?
Shaving cream. So you're in the shower with Edge gel, washing off, and you're getting the red out.
I was playing a game of Freddy vs. Jason trivia the other day that I found in my garage, and there was a question that said that you actually got burned in one of the fire sequences during the fight scene, and caught on fire, literally. Do you remember that? Is that a true thing?
Yeah, I didn't get burned per se, but what happened was, so there's a sequence where the sheriff or whatever, we're there's a control panel, and I throw him or chop the control panel, and it sparks up. And all the sparks came off, and the jacket I was wearing was made of burlap, and it had all this things they put on it to age it, and there was no fire retardant on it, so the sparks hit the jacket, and the jacket went up in flames. And I remember standing there, seeing the flames licking up in front of the mask, and knowing I had, a few seconds before I had to worry too much. And everybody was just standing around staring at me, kind of in shock. And I just standing there on fire, and I go, "A little help?" And the effects boy ran over and grabbed him.
It probably just sounded like,
a little help.
All right, we're gonna play one last clip. This needs no introduction. All right, the inevitable question, obviously. Who do you think won?
I always say I won by a head.
I love it.
Robert just got me back. I spilled water on myself. I think, I feel confident saying I won the battle, but I don't think the war is over, and probably will never be. But
well, that's good news, because that means there's got to be more Freddy vs. Jason. The movie did so well. Did it surprise you guys that there wasn't a sequel right off the bat, or was there a sequel idea right off the bat?
They came to us right after, and Jeff Katz came to Robert and I right after, and Ronnie Yu, and said, "Hey, we want to keep the team together, and we want to do Freddy vs. Jason vs. Ash." And
so that was a serious conversation.
we almost had all three of us here this weekend. It's a shame, but
oh, that would have been cool.
Everybody wanted that to happen. I mean, everybody wanted that to happen. Anyway, and it didn't.
Any reason why it didn't? Like, it got pretty far, obviously.
I think what I heard was that Sam Raimi wanted to do something else with his character, and it's so hard. It was hard to put Freddy and Jason together, and to make that happen, I think, who knows? I mean, so that's all I heard about it, was that it was Raimi's decision, and we all have to live with that. But
would you play Jason again?
Of course I would.
Hell yeah. Hell yeah.
It's I think the most fun I've had.
And I want to end on this last question. Unfortunately, we have to end this. But the weigh-in in Vegas. You got to do that?
Yes. Yeah.
And talk about that experience. That was hilarious.
So they came up with this great idea of introducing the movie and me and Robert in Las Vegas in this huge theater as a weigh-in for a title fight. And Michael Buffer is at the announcer.
Yeah.
That's good. Ready?
Probably just sued us.
So they had this suite for us to all get into makeup and hair and everything, and so Robert's getting into his makeup, and I'm getting into my costume, and Michael Buffer's there, warming up his voice and stuff like that. And then we go down, and I didn't realize how big the theater was, and how many. And it was jammed with people. It was just fantastic. And so, of course, they introduced Robert first. And Robert, he gets to say everything, of course. And he just lit everybody up and got it going. And then at some point, we had it set in the dialogue. I jump up from the table and go at him, and so it was just so much fun to do. The reception was, that and seeing the movie with the 2,000 fans in the field in Austin, Texas, easily two of the best memories I have.
Oh my God, I can only
of the
imagine.
movie. Yeah.
All right, well, as we send you off here, what are you doing next? What can we see you in next?
I'm kind of semi-retired these days. I'm focusing more on acting and writing scripts.
That's great.
I've got a script out right now that's being looked at, so with any luck, that'll get made this year.
Horror type?
It is a horror. Yeah.
Very good. We're excited. You're in the right place for that, man. All right, everybody, give it up for the legend here, Kirzinger, Jason Morgans himself, man. Thank you, everybody, for coming. This is so fun. Have a great Monsterpalooza. Keep it going.